Game Junkie.
Now You're Playing with Podcast, episode
6.
Hey, this one's pretty good. One of our favorite game stores in Cincinnati was a place called Game Junkie. Now, I won't get into it much here. We get into the show, but most video game stores are either corporate or mom and pop. Mom and pop tend to be dirty, kind of flea market-y feeling, or your corporate stores are corporate and clean but lack any soul. Game Junkie was the one store I've been to that had both the soul of an indie store, and it was super clean and nice and comfortable and inviting and fun and passionate, and basically it's pretty much the best game store I've ever been to. But because it was the best game store I've ever been to, and I loved them so much, they're closed now. But so our guest this month is Scott, one of the former employees there. We actually ran into him at Korg's last year.
Yeah, we ran into him at Korg's, and we've seen him around a bunch of times.
Yeah.
I used to run into him at Game Crazy all the time, and
of course, we finally talked to him and recognized him, but we had known the face, but just never added two and two together. By the way, I'm Chris.
And I'm Tatton.
Yeah, we'll get that part out of the way. But yeah, it's an interview with Scott, talking about his days at the Game Junkie. And the clip you heard at the beginning was from a movie that they did. I mean, that's how cool that place was. They were making their own movies and releasing DVDs and fan shit.
Yeah, they had their own T-shirts and built their own little community. I mean, we'll get into all this in the show. It's a fantastic listen. It was a great store. We're going to hear the birth of it. We're going to hear the fall of it. It'll be a good listen.
Yeah. So, enjoy.
Now you're playing with podcast.
And we are recording.
All right. We're back. We're here with Scott Scooter. He was an employee at what I consider the greatest indie game store ever, Game Junkie in Cincinnati, Ohio.
It rocked.
They went out of business, though, what was it, 06-ish?
2007.
2007?
Yeah.
I'm up here in Columbus, and I'd make the trek down there just to go to that store, pretty much. That and Tatton's wife's store at the time. Kind of made the round, the big U, I guess, to hit all those stores. So we'll just kind of start from the beginning. Were you with them from the beginning, or
Not quite. I started working there in 2003.
When did they open?
They opened, I believe, the year before, back in 2002. The way that I found out about the store, probably the same way that a lot of people did, was actually through other people that worked at other game stores. At the time,
There's no social media at this
social
point.
media, yeah. Social media at that point was, you tell someone else about it, and that's how you find out. But I was working at EB at the time. Me and my buddy Vader, we were roommates, went to high school together. He was working at the EB in Western Hills, which, for those of you who are familiar with Cincinnati, it's about the last place in the world you ever want to be when it gets dark. And I know, one of the previous topics was retail stories. Right. All you need to know about the area is that the busiest days of the month were the 1st and the 15th. Read the rest into that. You'll figure it out. So the assistant manager there, Jamie, had told me about the place, and so one day I just decided to drive up there and started becoming a regular at the store. And me and one of the guys who was managing there, Steven, became very, very good friends, and he knew I was working at another store at the time, and had actually just quit a couple of months previous to concentrate on my main job full time. And he said, hey, you want to come up and just, work part-time, come have fun? And said, sure. And so after that, stayed on there pretty much until I had decided that I was moving up to Columbus in the first part of 2006. And, that was the main reason I left was, life brought me to Columbus, Ohio. So, it took me away from there. But the time I had there was great.
So you were part-time worker, like I was with the game store, you had a real job and then a part-time on the side just to get access to good games and stuff.
Exactly. And kind of as time went on, there were certain things that I took more responsibility for. I was kind of the main person in charge of the weekly tournaments, the Smash Brothers, Halo, most of those events, and also did a lot of help with the setup for the anime conventions that we would go to
Mm-hmm.
during that time. Sugoi-con and Akatsucon were the main two. We became very, very tight with those two groups, and so we were able to run the game room, to have a booth there, and it proved to be really a nice thing for the business. A great way to make a few extra bucks and show off some of the import stuff that the store had.
That was your guys' forte, really. Was the imports. They still to this day. There was one store in Columbus, Yellow Oasis, I think, or YO.
Yeah,
they were import first, but even their selection wasn't that great.
Well, and even back in the mid '90s, there was one Video Games Express that dealt with some imports, and the other Bird stores kind of did some imports, but nowhere near the volume or quality.
They would
that
rent
Game
Genesis
Junkie
games
did.
with the side shaved off, the import Genesis.
Yeah,
they'd cut the sides off with a razor so you could play them.
Yeah.
But we'll just go back briefly with EB. That was part time too.
Yeah, that was part-time as well. Kind of all the game store jobs were that I've had.
It's a corporate job, but was it as bad in the late 90s, early aughties with EB as opposed to GameStop now?
I don't think so. Not in the least. I mean, it was probably the most relaxed when I had worked at GameStop in the year 2000. And that was probably the most relaxed out of any store that I had been at, because this was actually GameStop.
Oh, GameStop.
Yeah, before when Barnes & Noble owned them.
Oh,
before there was
gotcha.
ever an EB merger or anything like that. Before FuncoLand was even part of the picture. Because the one I was at in Florence, Kentucky, there was a GameStop in the front of the plaza, and then you went to the back of the plaza, and there was a FuncoLand. So, for the longest time, they were competitors, and then when they merged, it was the only two stores in the entire country where they had two stores in the same plaza.
Well, it's actually funny because our Polaris Mall that has two GameStops now. Everyone always thinks that was
closed.
Because did they really?
Yes, finally. I was in there the other day. One of them closed. It shocked me.
Wow.
Everybody
Accounting 101.
Yes.
Everybody who
GameStop.
didn't see Polaris open thinks that was a result of the buyout of GameStop and EB. I don't know if you know this or not, but it wasn't. There was actually two EBs in the mall.
Yep, I
at the
remember
same
that.
time.
It was for kids or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was ridiculous.
And I think that was the same reason that the Funco Land in Kentucky lived as long as it did, because they couldn't have two of the same name store in the same plaza.
Mm-hmm.
So they kept that old Funco Land there forever.
Wow.
Until they finally shut the doors down. And that was after I had moved up here. So that had to be 06 or 07 before that place shut down. Had the Funko banner and everything.
That's
Nice.
so awesome. I miss Funko Land.
It's sad, isn't it? We used to hate Funko Land then, but now we miss it.
Yeah.
I liked our Funko Land. There was a guy in our Funko Land. His name was Mel, and he was a super nice guy. But he was still there when Ark the Lad was coming out, and got pushed back for a year and a half. And every time I'd call in, because
It was on time for a Working Designs game. Give them a break.
But they push it back for a month or two
Still
at a
mentioning
time.
Ray Earth.
He'd answer the phone, he'd be like, Funko Land, whatever, this is Mel. And I'd be like, hey, Mel, it's Tatton. He'd be like, got delayed again. That was as soon as I knew who I was, he knew exactly what it was.
That's awesome.
And in the end, I ended up, I was the only pre-order that lasted the entire time. And they got 2 or 3 of the pre-order watches. So he just gave me, he's like, here's all the watches. He's like, you deserve these.
So you get involved with Game Junkie.
Got involved with them, yeah.
We don't want to get to the negatives right away, because I want to praise this place as much as I possibly can, because you go to most game stores, you either get the corporate environment, everything's sterile, a few displays, everything is mapped up by corporate, where what goes where, how everything is shelved, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Then you have your mom and pop stores, where the majority of those, they're endearing to me, but I can see where a mom would be put off by it, or somebody they're not going to feel so comfortable in there, because they're not the cleanest places. They're not that well organized. They kind of look like junk stores.
They're inconsistent, because it's whatever glass cases or stuff you can get for cheap from other stores that have been sold out.
Really
or whatever.
obnoxious orange price stickers. Just this stuff that it doesn't appeal to everybody. Especially, men my age don't give a shit, but I'm only one quadrant that you have to go after.
Right. Game
Junkie was the nicest comic book store that you go into. A lot of comic book stores are super clean. Everything's displayed perfectly. Everything's dusted constantly. I mean, maybe you tell me if I'm wrong, but I mean, it was like the displays were really nice. They had nice design. They had up nice set pieces where all the TVs were with nice colorful panels.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you would think it was a corporate store if you didn't know any better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, all of the designs in there were designed with specific purposes in mind. You could absolutely tell. You know, Matt wanted there to be an area in the back for hanging out, and wanted there to be special demo areas for special games that most other stores wouldn't probably even dare touch. You know, there was the Steel Battalion demo station.
Wow.
For the longest time, was one of the ones about halfway back on the store on the left side. There was almost like a little closet type area. And you'd walk through like a camouflage paper door kind of opening, and they had the full 40-button Steel Battalion controller out to play. Now, the ironic thing is I don't know of anybody who ever made it to the second stage of this game.
Did you
But it was
sell
fun
it?
to try.
That's the important part.
Yes.
There you go.
Yes, it did sell.
And I think like that's the important thing about Game Junkie is that you had that hangout place in the back. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, for here, you know, probably by far the biggest chain that we've had in Columbus was Bert's chain when he was like in the late 90s. I think he had 9
4 or 5
stores.
really that
He had a lot. He had, I mean, they were all over the place. I mean, there was the one that his son ran. There was the one up on Bethel, the one over in Westerville.
And I remember
there
the
was
one
the
on
one at
Bethel.
Polaris. There was the one in Reynoldsburg. There was at least 1 or 2 more. Maybe it's
You know
closer
this
to
better
6 or
than I do
7.
because I wasn't like the big collector in the late 90s.
The Bethel one closed
Yeah.
in like 05, didn't it?
Yeah.
It did. Well, it closed after
Jason bought it.
Yeah,
and then
Jason bought it
Jason
and
was
ran it into
Jason,
the
right?
ground, and
Gotcha.
it was like from when Bert bought it to when Jason bought it, you'd go in and there was like combat carts being sold for $5 and stuff like that, and it was like. There was a big place with a couch up in the front for him to
Where
when he's
him and his
downtime.
girlfriend would make a baby, which they did.
Oh, dear God.
It was like, I mean, it definitely like
As far as I'm aware, none of those things ever happened in Game Junkie. I'll go ahead and confirm that right now.
Okay, no baby making it. Greatest game store ever. No baby making in the back room.
But like one of the big things that that happened was when the Reynoldsburg store sold. One of the things that they added that the new owner got was he put a big couch in the back for people to come and hang out in. And Bert was like, that's going to be like the downfall of that store is you don't want people just to come in and hang out. You want them just to come in and buy, and move on. You're there to be a store. You're not really there to be, like an arcade or whatever. But that model is very successful in the board game world by far because you need to look at places like the Guards Tower, Soldier, things like that. Like they welcome people to come in and play Magic and play Warhammer and play things like that because the longer they're there, the more stuff they're going to buy. They're going to get into new things as they talk to people.
Yeah.
And Game Junkie was like the video game equivalent of that. Like,
Absolutely.
Like you'd go in and there'd be like a Papa Music controller back in the back, and if you didn't know what that was, there was someone there who would sit down and show you how to play. The next thing you know, you're like, buying like a flip top for your PS2 and like a $70 Papa Music game or whatever. It's
all the kids would play Naruto all the time.
yeah, that's
And
actually
then-
where I found my Naruto for GameCube.
Yeah. I bet Game Junkie sold more copies of the various Naruto games for the GameCube than any store in the entire country. We had to. I want to say between the from Naruto 2 to Naruto 4 were the games that I was there for. We sold at least 150 of each of them.
Hot damn.
450 of an import GameCube game.
That's yeah.
At this little Westchester, Ohio store is
In the
is
middle of a
amazing.
strip mall.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy to get to, and that's the other thing. I mean, we'll talk about problems in a minute, but if you're a kid on a bike in a neighborhood, you're not biking to the store. It's on the it's next to a freeway interchange in a strip mall. Not bike friendly, not kid friendly. I mean,
And on top of that,
Car friendly, yes, but
not kid friendly.
But-
and you've got kids coming in here buying Naruto, so they had something right, and I mean, it could have been better, but.
Maybe
we'll get to that
suburban
later.
friendly would be a good way to put it because it definitely the whole area, Liberty Township, Westchester, a little bit more of an upscale area. Definitely, Soccer Mound kind of area might be a good way to put it. So the kind of place where you might find the kids be dropped off for a half hour to check out stuff, and then the mom comes back after going across the street to Kroger or across the way, maybe to get Skyline Chili or Subway, which was in that plaza.
Right.
Those type things.
Right.
So I think that was a plus and a minus in that case.
I mean, I like I said, I want to try to avoid the shitting on them part as long as possible.
Yeah.
So,
And there's really not as much of that as you think. So
Yeah, but I mean, I'm sad that they're gone, and I want to talk about why they were great and why I loved them, and if as a thought experiment, what would I do if I ran a game store, as opposed to our last episode was the shitty stories of running game stores. I want to talk about the good stuff and what it could be and why I love this hobby, and they had so much of it right. And then then you had retro games, which they were also big into. I mean, they didn't have the best selection, but everything was represented, everything was there, and to my knowledge, everybody at least knew what was going on. They were like, "Oh, these are just Atari games. I don't fucking know." It wasn't.
Right.
There was a reverence there, or at least some respect for it.
There was, and the biggest event, the thing that Matt was probably the most passionate about as far as an in-game event, showed that more than anything with the video game Decathlon.
Yeah. I saw that movie and I was really interested. Of course, it was after it had taken place, but
yes. Yeah,
were you involved with all three? How many of them were there?
There were, I want to say there were 4 of them total.
Yeah.
I was involved with 3 of them.
The first 3?
The first 3.
Okay, so let's go back to the first one then. I mean, this was in his head. Matt's the owner, right?
Right.
And this was an idea in his head?
Yeah, it was an idea that he started. A couple people that were closer friends to his more helped him with that. The organization of that I didn't do as much of. That was definitely Matt's baby. Was the Decathlon.
What were the games? Do you remember?
There would be a mix of games from all different systems, new and old. I know Crazy Taxi, Burnout 3 were good games that were part of it. Oh man, if one of the old guys hears, and I'm thinking of a certain PlayStation game that is not coming to my head, and I'm going to remember it the moment I get home. It's going to kill me. Would normally have like one of the World Championship games at the end, like the Nintendo World Championship, as the last game.
So how did it work?
Basically, you would come in, you could practice, as long as no one else wanted to put their official score in. You could practice a few times. We weren't really strict about that.
So is this like an all-day thing, or was it a week-long thing, or was it...
It was every week there would be 1 or 2 games that would be the on-schedule games for that particular week.
Okay.
And if you had signed up for the Decathlon, you would then come in and practice if you wanted to, but then you would just call one of us over and say, I want to do my run. I'm ready to go. And basically post your score. And then where you finish, how many points you got for that particular week, were based on either how many points you had or where you finished in ranking. I think we tweaked that formula over a couple of years based on wanting it to be the same kind of things that I think sports series do. You want to tweak it to be, do you give more points for first or second, or do you do it by score? The sky's the limit right there.
Well, I'm actually looking at your blog, and of course doesn't believe they have the game that just says the details. Yeah. $20 to enter, free T-shirt.
Yeah. And when it first started, it was really huge. We had sponsors. We got sponsorships from some of the other stores in the strip mall. So, the various T-shirts, especially the second year, had, sponsor labels on all the side of it. And we got a lot of help from the local businesses in putting it on. So
when it ended, was the last 2 games, was it like a finals, or was it just kind of determined, well, these 2 are probably going to win? Or...
We would typically hype up for those last people the last couple of weeks when they were going to play. A lot of times they would do their final runs during like the Friday Night Live party that we had on Friday nights, so that we would have a big crowd there. Oh, Friday, and those were great. And we'll get into that in a minute for sure.
Yeah.
But we would definitely hype up those.
Being out of towners, we just come in on Saturdays or whenever we had off. Mm-hmm. We'd never see any of this stuff. I mean, we'd see the couches and the kids hanging out. Mm-hmm. And we'd buy our stuff and go, but we never got to take place in any of this cultural stuff that they were trying to do there, and nobody around here does that. I mean, the closest thing we had was when Brent was here at Play It doing the fighting game tournaments.
Well, actually, I stumbled into Play and Trade a little while ago, and the Matt that's running that place there, they were running a tournament, and they were like
more modern
stuff. Well, it was more on the modern side. They had some GameCube
Call of Duties and Maddens and
but it was the same thing though, that they had local sponsorship, like in the strip. Some companies had donated stuff, or they had had gone in on it and sponsored it and put some prizes in. So like you could win Graffiti Burger gift certificates and stuff like that.
That works.
Yeah.
Graffiti Burger any good? Sidebar?
Yeah. Actually, it's
Do
really
you like
good.
Five Guys?
Love
It's
Five
it's like a
Guys.
local Five Guys. A little bit different. They got like turkey burgers and a little more variety on what you can get. But
You get
Okay.
Texas toast for instead of like hamburger buns.
if you're
which is
one of those
awesome.
like I like local businesses over chains, you can just kind of fly that flag. So
Makes
it's worth.
sense.
I'd try it. I'm not going to say you're going to like it or not, but it's worth a shot.
their
I like
graffiti
what I'm
sauce
hearing.
is really
Yeah.
good.
Yes.
It's like a Thousand Island kind of sauce.
It's kind of like the Big Mac sauce but better.
I like this.
Yeah,
And what's awesome is
get a
like,
side with your fries.
yeah.
And it's the same as Five Guys with their fry sizes. Like you get a large, and it's like a big bucket full. It feed like 5 people.
It's
So
almost like the next podcast is coming together. Local foods which you like eating with your video games.
That's right.
Pepsi throwback.
Nice. Perfect. But yeah, so that last week we would definitely hype up whoever was in the top positions and have them come in and go at specific times so we could make that final part of the event for the people who were going to come in first, second, or third as much of an event as humanly possible.
What kind of prizes are they getting?
Usually pretty decent cash prizes. I want to say the first couple of years it was like $500.
Really?
Something
Not
like
even like
nice.
gifts. Not even like gift cards or something. It was all like
Yeah.
cash.
Those first couple times it was cash.
That's fantastic.
There were some gift cards involved, some prizes. For we didn't really do like random drawings for prizes for just people participating, but you know,
You got
I
a
think we
t-shirt out
figured
of
with the T-shirt getting out of it, everyone would get something, some kind of.
And you did
memento
charge
from it.
$20, so I mean, you don't need that many people to cover that. So
That's true. Although, by the time that I had left, when I looked at how many people were on that third and fourth one, I think Matt had a hard time holding the momentum of it from a year-to-year basis. And that's one of those things where you have to make a huge commitment to it. And,
Right.
if your mind's kind of wavering from one thing to another, it probably is very easy for that to drift from your mind or not put as much time into it as you maybe want or need to continue to build that.
How was business this whole time? Was it steady? Was it increasing? Was it going up? Could you sense it going up and down with? Can you overlay it with the game industry in general? Like the Xbox is getting more popular, our store isn't doing as well, or anything like that.
I would say, definitely it followed all the same kind of standards as far as, when business was busiest. Holidays were obviously the busiest.
Mm-hmm.
New releases. Of course, we kind of had our own sections when the Naruto games would come out. We sold so many of those. Those would be banner days for us.
Yeah.
The only bad part about some of those days were, when you're selling 70
So
copies of a brand new game, the profit margins are often so bad with those.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And plus,
Yeah.
your import stuff, your shipping costs and everything, I'm sure was.
Yeah, and I mean that was all figured into the price, but you're absolutely right. You're still not making a ton of money on those things.
What was the So you sold like Naruto GameCube games, for instance. So did you
Yes.
sell lots of boot discs with them, or import GameCubes, or what was the preferred method?
It was either freeloader discs, or we did offer the service where we would install a region switch on the system that would allow you to just flip a switch on the back and go between one or the other.
Now,
But probably
was the
n-
margin good on that? I
The
would
margin
assume.
was
I would
decent
assume
on
like a mod install that would be like your best margin because that's a service and
Exactly.
people aren't willing to crack open stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And plus, the nice thing with the GameCube one is, you're not circumventing anything. I mean, Nintendo was kind enough to leave it as just an open and closed circuit. You didn't have to like actually put in one of the chips like you do on the PlayStation or whatever. So it was.
But they were not
Exactly.
kind in
It was,
giving us the Spice GameCube. Bastards.
And-
Corey
and-
has one of those, by
yeah.
the way.
I know.
And that's a good point.
Kills
We looked at during, especially with the import games, a lot as far as, what roads do you want to go down? As far as what kind of modifications do you want to make on systems? Because even though, we were a small store, you still didn't necessarily want to ruffle feathers with the wrong people.
Right.
So I think that's where the flip tops for the PS2s came into play, and where the freeloaders and the region switches were the best bet as far as the GameCube goes, because you're not really having to install switches and mod chips and do things like that.
Yeah.
It's minimally invasive, but you're still opening up these doors to play these import games the best possible way.
Exactly. And
While
it's-
introducing the least possible amount of piracy, even though, as we know with the flip tops, that it's not 100% thing.
Right, it's still gray in that area, but still,
Exactly.
it's
better.
from the source perspective, from the legality perspective of it,
Absolutely.
certainly nothing illegal about the modifications that you were doing versus the ones where you actually are circumventing code and it's violating the DMCA and
Exactly.
That's the thing. When you're running a mom and pop, you have to you have to do what the chains don't do.
Exactly.
So, catering to imports, catering to classic games, catering to modification services within certain bounds. I mean, not giving GBA flashcards with 500 games on each thing.
Exactly.
Yes.
But I mean that's why we love these stores, and that's where they have to be good, because if they don't do it, then nobody does it. And
exactly.
The internet just isn't the same. You can't browse, and everybody overcharges for shit. So,
and that's very true. And building those senses of communities around not only the store but around certain genres and certain games.
Right.
And that was probably one of the biggest things for us, was that being out of town, so as we said a bunch of times, we didn't go there that much. But when we did go there, everyone was always super friendly, super engaged. We didn't just get the can I help you find anything? We got the what kind of games do you like to play? What kind of stuff are you looking for? And then, kind of use that to segue into, well, check out this section. Well, here's some cool stuff. I got some stuff behind the counter, whatever. It was very, like the staff was, really engaged in what they were doing. Like, they really wanted to help, everyone coming in.
So, did he basically just hire his friends?
To start with, yeah. Steven, my friend Steven, was probably one of the people that wasn't one of his friends to start with.
Mm-hmm.
But he was probably the person who had the best business acumen out of anybody who was there. So... thank God he was there, or else I don't think the store would have lasted as long as it did.
But I mean, that's the thing. If I were thinking about running a business, the way laws are set up and all the costs and everything, it unless you do it all yourself or really trust the person you're hiring employees basically.
It's painful.
It's painful. I mean, do you know Arcade Legacy in Cincinnati?
I have been wanting to go there so bad it's not
you have to
funny.
go. It's awesome.
It is so great.
But
so guys, when are we making our road trip?
Yeah, I mean, he's one of our targets to interview. That Tatton knows him pretty well.
Cool.
Yeah.
But right now where they are, they've got their community going. They've got their tournaments all the time. He has his decent business, but it's just him and his family running the place. He's closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, and they're making the jump to Forest Fair Mall.
I heard that. I was excited to hear about that.
And it's going where GameWorks used to be, or not GameWorks, Time Out used to be. If you grew up in Cincinnati, Time Out was legendary. It's where I played Mortal Kombat for the first time.
I have fond memories of Time Out.
But when you're going to a mall space away from a business park where you're a destination, and now you're just a casual person can walk by and come into your arcade. Being a one-man operation is not going to cut it, and I'm optimistic. I hope all the best for this place, but I'm kind of scared that he's crossing into this threshold where everything's going to turn to shit, because he's going to have to start hiring people, and then they can't afford good people, and I don't know. We'll find out. But I mean, that's kind of what I'm saying. It's you have to really have good employees, and then to have a good employee, you can't pay him enough.
Exactly.
Running a business like this, so that's.
Yeah. I can tell you for a fact, when I was a Game Junkie, I was perfectly happy to make, very little just because it was fun.
It was fun, and you got your games, and you got your access and your friends, and
it was a welcome change from what I was doing at the time. I was working. My main job was at our family business, and it's family business. You do what you can, but it wasn't my love. My love was always computers and IT and games, and there wasn't a lot of computers and IT there. So this provided that outlet to keep me going. Keep me happy.
Awesome.
But and getting back to the that sense of community too, I think that was the other thing that Game Junkie did remarkably well, and that was a combination of a lot of different things. It was the Friday Night Live was a big part of that. Basically, every Friday we'd close our doors an hour early. We'd close at 8 o'clock. We'd put blankets over the shelves. We'd open up the store as much as humanly possible. Put out Xboxes and PS2s and any kind of system we can get our grubby little hands on.
Would you charge admission, or? Yeah,
we did charge admission. It was $10 to get in, and that got you a coupon that got you a free drink. So either the balls beverage, which became ubiquitous with the store.
Awesome, yeah.
I want to say we sold, just over the time I was there, we maybe sold 25,000 bottles of balls.
Are you serious?
Dead serious. I mean, it was in the tens of thousands.
Oh my gosh.
How many bottles of that we sold? I can tell you there were times that people would, some of the crazier kids would see how they could drink a 6-pack of balls. 72 ounces of high caffeine beverage. and I've seen them do it in under 5 minutes.
Nobody died. Hey, good for you guys.
Yeah. Hey, it was good for us. It was $10 for a 6-pack. We were happy. Now, those kids, I can't promise how well they felt.
Yeah.
But God love them for trying.
You check test scores around the schools and see where they go.
Yes. But I mean, and attendance for that would range, depending on the time of year, anywhere from 30 to 70 people. So, imagine 70 people stuffed into that store. And at any time, probably at least half of them were at some station playing some game.
So was it all like? Would you do like smaller tournaments or like no prize tournaments? Would it be just hang out and play games with us? Like what was the...
Some of both.
Okay.
We would do some smaller tournaments. Kind of the different cliques who would play certain games would a lot of times organize tournaments of their own. The Naruto guys would always play their tournaments and would work on
it. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry, it's okay. Would work on that time to kind of set the rules and set the players that were allowed and what weren't. There was a group of people who would always play DDR in the back. Mm-hmm. One of those guys, Ray, actually lives in the Columbus area now, so I see him every now and then.
Nice.
Huge DDR guy. Would bring the step and had the Stepmania stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
So he would bring in his laptop every single Friday, and I think we started letting him in for free because he did it.
Mm-hmm.
But his own machine would hook it up to that back TV, this big projection TV, and would play Stepmania the entire night. And would, when we hit,
He's probably in shape.
We're not. Yes. He got in shape. He was about as big as I was, but by the time he left, he wasn't.
Yeah. Spoken by three of us bigger guys here.
Yeah. Yeah. 5'6", 275.
Yeah.
Ding. There would be people who would play Super Smash Brothers very passionately, and of course there was the Halo crowd too. Mm-hmm. Halo 2, Halo 1, one of those was always being played at some point or another. So, those are the main games.
I mean, like we talked about it before, but you think when you're an outsider, you think video games. Oh, it's all the same thing. The sub-subgenres of gaming cliques.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
They're worse. They're almost as bad as the music sub-subgenres. I mean.
And I can tell you, those different
Halo kids and Naruto kids do not get along.
So different. Oh my goodness! Yeah. And the tournaments were a really good example of that. Like I said, that was probably my biggest responsibility, was being responsible for the big Saturday tournaments. And we would trip, depending on how busy we were, we'd try and do them once every couple of weeks probably. Mm-hmm. And try and do the big games once every quarter. So we'd try and have a Halo tournament every quarter of some ilk, a Naruto tournament, a Smash Brothers tournament, and then we'd mix it up with something else. Gotcha.
How intense do these get? I mean, because I'm not in any competitive thing to that degree. I mean, the biggest thing is my own tournament in my basement with my friends with stuff that most people never heard of before. So, the one time I saw a Smash Brothers tournament at the store, the whole store is fucking packed. I get these kids asking me if this particular move is legal or anything. Did it get that intense every time? Like, what rules are acceptable? Can I bring my own controllers?
A lot of the rules we were pretty consistent about, and there wasn't too much argument. There was, and the more popular the game was nationwide, the easier it was to do. Halo was probably the easiest out of all the games to set the rules for, because by about the second year that we were doing Halo tournaments, Major League Gaming had gotten very big. Mm-hmm. So basically, the big players would all want to play MLG rules all the time, or else they didn't want to go to the tournament. And Cincinnati was a nice little hotbed as far as some of the better gamers that are out there. Of course, the Ogre Kids, those are people who are familiar with MLG and the nicknames of those gamers. The Ogre Kids are from Pickerington. They would drive down for the tournaments. Eelmite Warrior and Strong Side are two other kids who are from Florence who would drive up for the tournaments. So, we had the blessing there of having world-class players coming to our store to play these games.
That's awesome.
Where do they go now? Or is MLG dead? I don't keep up.
Across the entire country, they're making $100,000 playing Halo.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The Ogre Kids, I think, got $250,000 each on a contract to play strictly for Major League Gaming. There was definitely, for the best of the best, there was some money in it for them. We were small potatoes. It was just fun for them to come in.
Wow.
In their case, but really for the big tournaments like that, yeah, it was that had the biggest groupings, it was intense. You know, the Smash Brothers tournaments were always pretty intense. Naruto, you know, there were some passionate people that played Naruto, let me tell you.
Most of those are fighting games, right?
Yeah, fighting games. And then Halo, the Halo, and you said this very perfectly. The kids who play Halo are just different than the kids who play
No, I think it's
games.
the other way around. I think the Naruto kids are different. The Halo kids are just typical jock assholes. But thank you.
Well, touche. It actually made the Halo tournaments probably the hardest in order to, you know, keep things in line. Because, you know, you'd have kids who were wanting to say things and act in a much different way than they did for Halo and Smash tournaments. Mm-hmm. You know, to the point where a couple, you know, and we always portrayed ourselves and tried to be a family store. So we would tell people, you can't come in here and be swearing and screaming.
The store ain't Xbox Live, punks.
Right. You can't talk like you're a 12-year-old on Xbox Live. You have to come in here and be respectful of the other people who were in the store, because we were still trying to be open and be a store, even though when we had 80 people in there playing Halo, that wasn't easy to do.
No.
Exactly.
And, you know,
That's
be
the other
respectful
thing.
of the other people.
When you had that many kids in the store, were you generating any business, or is this basically just, you know, it's...
We generated some business. Obviously, they would all buy drinks and buy fairly high margin items like that while they were there.
Right.
Doing business, you know, otherwise was very tough to do. We would, you know, usually have a person or two who would be strictly keeping an eye on customers coming in to make sure to get them through the crowds directly to whatever item they were wanting to get.
And
that was definitely
the
a
layout
challenging
was
thing.
probably decent for that, though, because you had that whole back area with really very little product.
Yeah, it was good, but when you stuff
Not
80
optimal.
people into that store, it just
there's
doesn't
no way
matter.
there's no right way to do it.
And so much of the action was happening on those 4 demo stations that were in the front of the store.
Yeah.
That made it challenging too. So, you know, it was a blessing and curse, but I would say more times than not, the tournaments were a very, very good thing. They were the thing that I think I was the most proud of to be a part of, because it was my responsibility to make sure that
if it
they
weren't
were
for this
big.
stuff, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about it. I mean,
Exactly.
And I think the point you made earlier is actually a really profound point. That you know, the kids who are making, you know, $250,000 playing Halo or whatever came into Game Junkie to play because it was fun. You know, like for them it was work and big money.
Yeah.
And, you know, to have fun. Like, they came and did it, you know, at your store. I think that says a lot about the atmosphere that you guys built and about the community that you guys were forging.
Some of the best times I had at those Halo tournaments were usually at about 9 or 10 o'clock at night. Because, the store closed at 9. Those Halo tournaments were never done at 9 p.m. because we had that many people. So I would have been there since maybe 8 o'clock in the morning. One of us would stop at the Chick-fil-A and buy this ginormous bag of chicken biscuits that would last until 5 p.m. Thank you, God. Those things are great. You know, we
good thing it wasn't on Sunday.
That's right. Had to do them on Saturday. Had to do Saturday.
Unless it's White Castles, then it's a totally different tournament.
Oh, no.
I love White Castle.
Thank God the White Castle wasn't open at that point. They hadn't built the Walmart. And, so, you know, I had been there at that point for, 13, 14 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Tired as can be. My feet are killing me because, I mean, it's still carpet on concrete.
Mm-hmm.
You know, standard store fare. Sitting in a chair, watching these kids play Halo better than anyone I've ever seen. And at that point, you know, you're down to maybe, 10, 15 people in the store. It's down to the finalists, and everyone else is like, I've watched as much as I can. I gotta go home. So
Kind of anticlimactic then, isn't it?
It's still pretty climactic.
But I mean,
because
when people watching and getting into it, and
yeah, a lot of that I think actually happens in the earlier rounds because there's still a lot of people there. It just ran so darn late that a lot of those people had to go home.
I don't know. Tips for running your own tournament, I guess. Maybe if you had a finals the next day with more people being interested in watching it. But so, did you ever play any of these yourself? Just kind of like see where you were, or
I would play. I wouldn't play in the big events. I played in some of them before I started running them. But when I was running them, I would only play in like small ones that we would do. Like we would occasionally do like a Mario Strikers tournament and Mario Baseball in the same day.
Right.
And we had maybe 10 to 15 people. So it's like, this is just fun. It's $5 entry fee.
Right.
You know, we're going to give away some gift cards. You know, I'll join that one and just have some fun.
Yeah.
The bigger ones, after maybe the first couple times playing through them, I didn't, just because the responsibilities were too great. I couldn't do both.
So is the decathlon the only time you really went to retro gaming at all?
We did do retro game tournaments. We did them kind of as oftentimes as that one special tournament in the quarterly cycle. So we didn't do a ton of them. The video game decathlon was by far the most featured retro tournament that we would do. And it was fun.
I'm getting excited for next month now. Crazy Taxi's in, by the way. That's in.
Yes! I will be practicing that for the next month.
Ever play Saturn Bomberman? 10-person Saturn Bomberman. I know. I've never actually seen it on a television screen. I cannot wait to do this.
I have seen it because I used to own it. Cincy Classic, 2002. Enforced Fair Mall of all places.
We went to that one. I don't remember seeing Saturn. I thought it was the
TurboGrafx version.
I think we busted that one out late. Real late.
Gotcha.
Like 8:30, 9 o'clock or something. And
or maybe I didn't participate. I remember all the Cincy classics. I went to the last few of them. That depresses me that they're not around anymore.
Yeah, we went to 99 and 2001, I think.
99 was the one that was over off of Red Bank Road, right? The first one? Yep.
And then the second one was in Forest Fair.
Yep. And the third one, too. But there were two of them in Forest Fair.
I went to two in Forest Fair, I think. I don't remember going to that first one that you're talking about.
I want to say it was that first one in Forest Fair that at the end
there was one at, was it the Sharonville?
It was the
Sharonville
Fairfield
Convention Center?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was the newer one. That's right, Fairfield Convention Center.
Yeah,
that was
one
the
I
last
think I
one
just
I
went
remember
to in
going to.
passing.
That was like Route 4, I think.
Yeah.
Route 4.
Yeah.
But 10-person Saturn Bomberman, I want to see 10 people in a room playing this game.
Oh my god.
It's going to be... And you got to explain to half the people how to play it, but I don't care.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It's going to be beautiful. I'm going to cry.
It was one of the coolest things that I have ever played. You will love it.
I bought controllers. I'm all set. It costed me $200 to do this damn thing, but I don't care. Don't care.
And worth every bit.
Yes, and that's gonna be like the second game of the multiplayer tournament, so it's gonna be big.
I am so there for that.
Yeah. Okay, so where were you? We were talking about tournaments. So,
actually, I do want to touch on something real quick because, one of the reasons why I always wanted to make sure that whenever we did the Cincinnati run, we always went to Game Junkie was because I love imports. Like, I absolutely love the import games. We touched on the fact you guys carried the import, like the Naruto games, but you guys had way more than just like the import Naruto. I mean, like your selection of import stuff. I mean, it ranged from toys. I remember I bought little Animal Crossing diorama things from there. All kinds of different plushies. There were lots of PS2 imports. Tons of there was always a Beatmania, a Poppin' Music, a Guitar Freaks. One of those sitting there. One of still my most prized things I have in my collection is my PS2 Mushihime Special Edition that I got from there. So the range of stuff that you guys got, I mean, that was definitely hitting a very niche market.
Oh yeah.
What how well did that stuff turn over, and how did you guys really kind of decide what of those really unique things to bring in?
Matt would probably decide that more than anybody, and some of it I think was about having a good variety, getting games as much as possible that either were coming out in Japan much earlier that would have some demand. We got the Soul Calibur 2 import games. I know they had those for that reason, because there was such demand around playing Link on the GameCube version. So we got those. But also, there was definitely a group of people in the store who were huge rhythm game fans. And Matt was a huge rhythm game fan. So that, I think, spurred on a lot of the Poppin' Musics, the Guitar Freaks, the Drum Mania games like you were talking about, too. So I think it was just a case of Matt trying to find games that were interesting to him, that he thought would be interesting for people who were coming into the store too.
So when you buy those, a lot of these would be sealed new games. Would you crack any of them open and demo them more often, or
we would we
you kind of have to.
Exactly. The blessing and curse of having the game store is if you only have one copy of it, and you want to have the box out there without having a color printer and a huge printing operation, you have to get that one, and we would demo them as much as possible.
And you hear the online bitching about GameStop and how they sell their new copies, or they're cracked open, their demo copies as new even though they're opened already. I couldn't fucking care less as long as you guarantee it the same as a new game.
Right.
Then that would piss me off. But you kind of have to demo this stuff, especially if it's something that. How are you going to experience this sort of thing? You're not going to risk $60 on an import game, $70 or something.
Exactly.
On an import game that you have no idea how to play it. I mean, you got to have some sort of inkling of what it is or how to play it.
I agree with you.
So, yeah, shut up, Internet.
Well,
now I will say in a case like GameStop, you know, where there's not that kind of corporate entity to say that, you know, you want to demo the games at this point, and you have those kind of resources, there's probably no good reason that they couldn't have demo, you know, just a gut box of the game out there and keep the sealed ones back. But yeah, when you're a mom and pop store and you just don't have the resources or a lot of choice in the matter, and if you want to demo something like that, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You have to do that.
All you can do is hope that, like, you know, the one that you got to demo will drive sales for more as you start to bring some more stuff in.
Absolutely.
And
a lot of times people who would buy those games would buy a lot of that particular type of thing. You know, you're right. The buying of a Guitar Freaks game is almost always going to drive buying the Guitar Freaks accessory, maybe a drum accessory. Mm-hmm. So suddenly having that one game out demoed might be $150, $170 sale.
Right.
Big time stuff.
And once someone's invested in that, it's kind of easy to get them to go back and pick up, you know, the next $50 or $60 one. Or if you
at
guys,
your store.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, because, you know, they've already invested that much in the hardware. Now it's like, okay, well, let me get some more games to go with the hardware I've already got. And,
Absolutely.
And I think you guys, one of the first ones I saw who did a really good job of, like, seeking out the best collection, like the Japanese greatest hits version of the rhythm games to get the lower price value on them so that you could get some more out the door with the hardware. I mean,
exactly.
Which was really smart. A lot of places at the time up here that did do imports didn't do that. They always got, like, the absolute latest ones, and then they never really, I don't think, got the turnaround back from them because there weren't that many of us that you know, would throw down, you know, $70 or $80 on the, you know, whatever the latest Beatmania was.
You're absolutely right. It's a lot easier to convince someone to buy a game for $40 and kind of dip their feet in, as opposed to buying the game for $70 or $80. And a lot of those old collections too would have 2 games in one, so you get even more value that way.
Well, we talked about the good stuff, and we love the Game Junkie, but I guess we kind of have to talk about the bad side now.
The what happened part. Best
you want to give a story and we can ask questions?
You know,
because you left before they closed.
I left before they closed.
Was the writing on the wall?
To a small degree. I think there had always been, you know, kind of tension as far as how business was actually going. You know, I know that Matt.
What's he do now, by the way?
What's that?
What's Matt do now?
I think he's back working in the investment industry with he has a family, his brother.
So this was passion for him, and he had real life skills to go back to a real job
pretty much.
Okay.
And you know, his brother Mark is a big, you know, speaker in kind of in investment circles. He's actually been on TV before on, like, you know,
Occupy Game Junkie. I'm just
no, dear Lord. I think he floats that direction. He might actually do it. So I think there was family business that he was able to get back into and was in before he started to do Game Junkie. But it was definitely something he wanted to do from a labor of love, and from the big grand scheme sense. I think what happened was, Matt Mattson, that's his last name, if anybody doesn't know. Okay. Has wonderful ideas, had a wonderful acumen for what someone would want to see in a game store. You know, I think had great vision for those things, but didn't have quite the business acumen to back it up. You know, wasn't necessarily doing a lot of great things, but wasn't making the money.
I mean, that's the sad thing is the most successful mom and pop stores are the ones that look like complete shit and take advantage of TAMs to the absolute T, and, you know, train monkey employees to, you know, do nothing but stick to the script, and I mean, you know, it's buybacks basically. I mean,
they know that, like, they like video games, but the business sense drives it. So you go in and it's a business. You don't get the passion and the community and everything that came out of, you know, like what Game Junkie does, like what Arcade Legacy does. It's
and it goes without saying, it's, you know, there are a lot of senses of the video game industry that are low margin. New games are extremely low margin.
No margin in new games. You gotta go used.
Gotta go used. And Matt wanted to make sure they always had, you know, new releases whenever possible, which is admirable, which I think is a great thing. You know, and even the tournaments, because we were giving a lot of that money back out. Probably, I would always try for like 70 to 75% of the money to be given back out in form of the prizes. You know, those had a decent margin, but still not a great one. It was definitely meant as a driver to get people aware of the store just as much as it was to make money. Because it obviously looks impressive to say that, hey, we had a Halo tournament. And the biggest one we ever had, kind of funny story about this, is I put myself on the line for this one particular Halo tournament and said, it's a four-player team tournament. It's, you know, $25 per person to get into this thing, so $100 for a team. And those were pretty normal numbers. I mean, people who were hardcore into the game would pay that without any issue. And I flat out said when I was advertising it, the winning team gets $1,000. You know, just to put a little shock value in it. And of course, I knew the numbers previously. I knew that if I promoted the hell out of this thing,
10 teams would be easy to get.
Well, 10 teams, and you also got to have I think we had prizes going down to 4th place. And if we got more teams, the prize value would of course go up. But, the idea being, okay, if I can get 20 teams, $2,000 in here, we're going to have plenty of money to give to the first, second, third place teams. 4th place team, maybe a gift card for that had their $100 back, basically. But, found out about, after I had left the store, that Matt was apparently livid that I had done that, because it's like, how could you be guaranteeing all this money? It's like, I didn't do it without putting a lot of thought into it. You got to have a little bit of shock value with these things. And not even shock value, but, hardcore gamers, the people who are doing this for a competitive level...
They need a reason to go.
Yeah. They don't want to be promised, we might give you a few $100 if you make this investment in.
This ain't getting the van tour the country for whatever possibility.
Right.
Yeah, they're gonna... Yeah, they need their guarantees.
Right. And I was definitely...
Their guaranteed bag of Coke? No, no, they just have balls soda.
Yeah.
Was it soda or energy drink? I just call it soda.
It basically was both.
We're Midwesterners, it's fucking pop. Let's have some pride in your region.
Caffeine in a bottle.
Yeah, exactly. Pop. P-O-P. A pop machine. So the other thing... Okay, so you're going with...
We'll go with that. I think, on a personal level, me and him sometimes did not agree about what the goals of the different tournaments were. Mine was definitely always bigger and better, and bringing people in and getting the word out there. I'm not quite sure, what he was wanting to get out of all of them.
And you never lost money on any of these, right?
No, we made sure not to lose money on them.
Right.
That there were only a couple of instances like that where we would flat out guarantee a certain amount of money. We would always advertise the prize percentages, and sometimes hardcore players wouldn't like that because it's like, you're not giving all the money back. We have to make a couple dollars. We are a business. We are still running.
That was my next question is, what was around that place? This is a strip mall, an upper middle class neighborhood, right near a freeway, there was a big Kroger across the street. Now there's a Walmart there, I think.
There's a Walmart close by. There's a huge hospital right there. There's a Kroger marketplace.
That Hamilton freeway from 75 has just opened.
Yeah.
Because I don't know it too well now.
Butler Regional.
Butler Regional.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I don't care what it's called now. To me, it's the Butler Regional.
Okay, but like, what type of rent are you looking at a place like that?
I bet it was. Oh God, I'm trying to think.
Several thousand, 10,000 even.
Not that much. It was maybe $2,500 a month. It was a bunch, but it wasn't insurmountable.
No.
Oh, that's actually pretty good, all considering.
$2,500, $3,000 a month.
Because you guys were like right off the
But
interstate.
you notice if you drive through these neighborhoods, mom and pop places don't take up those storefronts. Those are mostly chains that can afford those leases and get discounts on them.
Right.
You're not. I mean, the mom and pop stores we know, the only one I can think of, like I guess Play it's kind of in one, but the economy is so shit now that there's so many open places that they'll give them to anybody. But especially at the height of the real estate boom, when
he's opening that in 2002.
He's opening in 2002. So it's a recession, but it's not. Real estate's still pretty fucking high.
Yes.
So I'm just saying. I'm just trying to think of the negatives here, and that would be one of them. And being a kid-friendly business that depends on parents to drop kids off. Now, I have a 2-year-old, so I don't know what parents of 12-year-olds do these days. But when I was a kid, I went places on my own. I would go around. I lived in Norwood growing up, so it wasn't the safest neighborhood, but it wasn't a shithole either.
Right.
I go around Norwood to place. I go to Everybody's Records up in Pleasant Ridge or stuff within walking distance.
Well, and I do think
this definitely was not a walking distance place.
It's not a walking distance place. I mean, where you grew up.
Yeah.
Did you ever walk to what's that store at Bethel and Sawmill?
Video Games Express.
But what's Bethel and Sawmill? What's
Bethel and Sawmill. Oh, like where Shot Comics is and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, the video. Oh man.
Video Central?
No,
What's
it's
the shopping center name?
Trading Zone.
What's
it
the
was
shopping
Carriage
center
Place.
name? Carriage Place. Thank
Yeah.
you.
How long has that place been there? Long time?
Carriage Place.
Carriage
No,
Place gotta be
Trading
old.
Zone.
Trading Zone. It just closed. It had been there.
Oh, it
since,
did close. Okay.
Yeah, it did. It'd been there since '94.
Oh, wow.
It actually it used to be in the building over to the right.
Okay.
Over by where the Taekwondo place is, and Taekwondo place was down a little bit further down the other side of where the strip mall was.
But
Gotcha.
that's you were in an area of like housing development, like new
Yeah.
like new subdivisions.
right.
Mhm.
You could walk to Trading Zone. You could
Yeah.
walk. That
Yeah,
was
like-
that was
like
a, that was a walkable.
There were
neighborhood.
bike paths there.
Yeah, we would walk and bike it, And most of the time, it was a little different situation for me personally because both my parents were retired, so, like it wasn't a hard sell to be like, hey, let's get out of the house. And be like, sure, let's drive you wherever you want to go. So
my that's what I'm saying. I only have my own experiences to go on, but if I'm living in Westchester in a housing in a subdivision, new subdivision, I'd want to go to Game Junkie, but there's no way I could get there. And
yeah,
getting my
there were
parents
no
to take me.
sidewalks or anything when we went.
It's parents or friends.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note too that whoever zoned that place zoned it terrible because the GPS MapQuest, no matter where you got directions to, took you the opposite way off of Sunday Road and over down. We actually the first time
And you
got
got
to
go under that bridge
Mhm.
right there.
Yeah.
One plus though, you got to drive by the cone.
But like the
Best
first
ice
time,
cream joint ever.
the first time that we went there, like we couldn't find it because we were down on the other side, and we ended up stopping at the Taco Bell just to get dinner because we were starving, and we saw some kids with it was something unique. It wasn't just like a regular Xbox game or whatever, but I don't think it was an import. I can't remember what it was, but we ended up asking them like, hey, where did you guys get that from? They're like, oh, the video game store at the street. We're like, is that Game Junkie? And they're like, yeah, like, where is it? Like we've been looking for it for like a half an hour, and it's because they zoned it on the opposite side of the interstate, and we would have I think we were at the point of almost giving up on it.
I don't remember this whole story, but okay.
Yeah, I was maybe because I was driving. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, why can we not find this place? And it's because they zoned the shopping center on the other side. So like,
GPS and street names were not friendly for that either, because if you knew it was on Sunday Road, which is what the address says, and you got off on 75 on Sunday Road, you'd have to make that funky right turn to get there. And if you weren't paying attention, you could totally miss that sign and be in the middle of nowhere in no time flat.
I don't know Westchester that well, and I mean it's mostly subdivisions and strip malls. But is there like a central old downtown area?
There is, which is the other direction on Sunday Road on 75. If you were going north, if you went right, you would go into that old Westchester area. But you'd have to go left and then go down maybe a mile and then make that funky right turn if you wanted to stay strictly on Sunday Road.
So how many kids would... So how many... So it's mostly kids from the neighborhood, though, right? Or you had your hardcore gamers coming in for tournaments and stuff, but was there a lot of people like yourself that were older but were adults with cars that can come in from all over the city? Were you getting people from all over the city, or was it... It
was probably about... for the Friday night parties, it was probably about 30-70. There were 30% of the people there that were, kind of in my age group, the lower, at that point, low to mid-20s, who had cars, and there were about 70% who were kind of teenagers, maybe with no friends who were just starting to drive, or would just be dropped off there and picked up at the end, that were just in the neighborhood.
Right. I mean, because, in that heyday... There was Game Swap, which I liked a lot, too, because they catered to retro gamers. Not as much now, but, I mean, I was a bigger fan then.
I wonder if my buddy Doug's still working there. I know one of the guys that works there, Doug.
Yeah, I mean,
Nice
they've got all the malls covered, which is even more ridiculous, but, I guess it works, because they're still there. Well, I guess they closed one of them and moved out to, Amelia, way, way out in the boonies.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it the Florence store they closed? in
No,
Wintermillion?
Eastgate.
Eastgate, yeah.
Florence one's in where the EB used to be in Florence Mall, but this was 2 years ago that I was last in there.
Yeah. I mean, I just see malls would even be more unfriendly to mom and pop, I would think. Although nowadays, with real estate down, that it would be easier to start one now.
I wonder if the guy who not only did I know a guy by the name of Doug, who ran, I think, the Florence store, but the older guy by the name of Ron was the guy who owned those stores.
Yeah.
He was always an interesting cat.
His wife Becky worked there for several years.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, so that's in
maybe
fact
where I recognized her from.
Yeah, that's where I knew of the place first and took him in there, and he met her, and so I got him as like a trade-in and didn't get much for him. We used that joke before, but it's still funny.
Trading values are subject to change.
Yes. You're not an import, sorry. It's
you can imagine the trading values of those are a little out there sometimes.
Yeah, you're Gen 64, dude. You ain't worth shit now.
Oh,
damn. I'm kind of an import. I've got my dual citizenship, so
yeah, that's right.
I'm modified import.
Yeah, you're you got a region switch on your ass.
You're a freeloader. But kind of closing up on, I think, the what went wrong part of it. I mean, yeah.
So what was it? 07?
07.
And when did the Wii come out?
06. Late 06.
So was that part of it? Maybe they just couldn't get into the loop with the Wii stuff.
Well,
I mean, maybe the writing was on the wall, but I'm just
I think
trying
at that
to
point
think.
it probably was pretty close to writing on wall. I mean, I know there were some clicks and some. It's the kind of thing that you would find in any group of people.
What's the import gaming scene like now? I mean, I think the 360 has some shooter imports only, like 2D shooters.
Yeah, I know. And it's a challenge on the 360 because not every game is region free. Like the system's still region coded, and there's a lot of games that are region free. There's a lot of games that still have region codes on them. But they're all labeled with their region codes. So you have to really do your research.
I know Wii hacking is pretty big. I don't know, but it's more for the purpose of homebrew / piracy
and emulation.
Yeah, emulation's a big one.
But I mean, I'm just trying to think.
Adding a DVD player.
PS3 is actually
what it needed from the very beginning.
Import friendly, I guess.
PS3 is the most import friendly because there's absolutely region free. Like they still put the region codes on there, but if
it's dormant, it's waiting to spawn up like Alien or something.
Yeah, like one of these days they're
gonna get a system update, and all of a sudden all your imports won't work.
Exactly.
And this is Sony. It could happen.
It could happen in a heartbeat.
Thank you.
Every single game still predominantly displays its region code on it, even though they don't enforce it. So their system is there. It's just laying in wait.
By the way, I'd like to thank Sony because my credit card was stolen, and I think that's what was compromised with the big fiasco last year. And that's where the hacker got my number from. That's really the only thing I can explain it. So, and if it happens to not be, I don't care. I still think Sony did it. Can I get sued for saying that?
I didn't hear a word you just said.
Yeah, we have fun here on Now You're Playing with Podcast.
Yes.
So I mean, I'm just trying to if I'm running my own business, there is so much I would if I had my own dream game store, so much of it would basically be a carbon copy of Game Junkie. Mm-hmm. Although it'd probably be a smaller operation, I probably wouldn't have any employees because I couldn't afford to pay them, or I'd have to have enthusiasts to come in for free merchandise or something. You'd have the tournaments. I'd have the retro games. I'd sell the RGB cables for the Sega Genesis for the 2 people on the planet that give a shit about stuff.
Yes,
but I don't know. But I'm so far out of the modern gaming thing. I don't know what would even be.
How much of it would be possible?
I don't. Yeah, my passion is the older stuff, what I grew up with, and nowadays I don't know what's out. But I would just be one of those old guys that say, I don't fucking care. They, those people that run their business just for the money part, and you understand why they get that way, because what they were passionate about's gone and passed them up. So,
well, and I think that's where, Game Junkie had the right thing going, where they were still getting the new stuff in, which obviously there wasn't a lot of margin on, but you were still keeping up with the current stuff. The money you made off of that could help you take risks on the import stuff, I remember the one time I went there, they had the Transformers Oh man, whatever.
Like the patches?
No, it was the core that Optimus had in the movie.
Oh yeah.
Like
So-
there was like a plastic version of that, like the toy was sitting back there. I'm like, where did this come from?
So was there any like big buy that he had that like blew up in his face? You know, like you get these stores that'll buy like way too many copies of Madden or like way too. They'll anticipate this game selling really well, but then not selling for shit and having way too many new copies in hand. And
I don't remember specific cases, but I know it's happened.
right,
And one of the things that, you don't hear as much about from stores like Best Buy and GameStops and big places like that is that distributors give all these big companies price protection.
oh yeah.
So
yeah.
if the game goes down, if the new game goes down from $60 to $40, these big companies essentially get $20 refunds on any of their unsold inventory, so that they're always in a position where they can make money on a new game. We didn't have that because we were buying from a lot of the same distributors, but we were buying from the Jack of all games of the world and whatever distributors we could get to sell us product. Once we had paid a certain amount of money for a game, that's how much we had paid. So
yeah, Burt's was really notorious for like he was really aggressive with the way he marks down his new stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And I mean that's probably why, because if like he just realized sitting on his stuff is not gonna.
right.
I don't know how successful a strategy that is, but it's a different strategy than most of these mom and pop places that'll hold on to that copy of Zelda for $45, $50, even though it's down to 20 in most places. I mean, it's
Right. And we would try and keep up with everybody else's price decreases. One of the things that I would do on a boring Tuesday evening if I was working and there was no one coming in, and trust me, there were Tuesday evenings like that. The Naruto players can only keep you busy for so long.
right.
Was to kind of go through the GameStop and the Best Buy websites and just go down their lists of price decreases and make our prices match, because we definitely wanted to be competitive on all those new games with GameStop, which while I was there they had opened a store off at Tylersville Road, maybe a mile and a half away. So I mean they were competition, and Targets and places like that. You just had to do that,
Right.
but we didn't have those.
but there was no like mega burn. Oh my god, what are we doing to 500 copies of what? Well, like give me like a big bust for a funny joke.
Like
I can't think of a punchline.
like
Gun.
We got
Ace Griffin Bounty Hunter. Yes. The only reason I remember that is because when I worked at EV, that stupid game, other than the fact that Henry Rollins did voice in it, was a game of the month. And back in those days in EB, they had their game of the month or their vendor of the month, and they rated you based on
that. What
how
Mace
many of
Griffin?
those games you sold. And Mace Griffin Bounty Hunter 1 month was that freaking game of the month, and it sucked, and we couldn't even get people in Western Hills to buy the damn thing. Thank you, I had to get that off my chest. I felt crappy all weekend, and I instantly feel better.
I think that's the new hexadecathlon game.
If you can make it through 3 hours, you win the whole damn thing.
Well, like Gun for the Xbox was like supposed to be Grand Theft Auto in the Wild West, and that nobody gave a shit about that, for instance. And I remember one of the guys at Burt's talking about, oh, that game flopped. We have about 20 copies of sitting on it. But so there was like no mega busts that you can think of.
I'm sure there were, but I'm not thinking of specific ones right now. But
but if you can't think of a specific one, then you weren't really burned with one like super bad.
Yeah, but I mean, even with if the store's finances were tenuous and you were trying to keep as profitable as you could, even a game where you had 6 of them and had 5 of them sitting there is significant.
How is the used game business up in a neighborhood like that? Because Corey works at a Powell location in a neighborhood where most kids have their own debit cards.
Ouch.
and a lot of adults think that they're rentals, that they like rent games instead of sell used games, because people like that don't deal with used products. What were the trade-ins like? Were you getting a lot of stuff in? Was it?
We did.
Yeah.
We did pretty good trade-in business. We did a good business on the used games, and we tried to keep the prices undercut on Best Buys by at least $5.
Right.
Any chance we could.
And I mean, did you have higher standards for your used product? Because I don't remember a whole lot of empty case stuff.
There really wasn't. I mean, we would take that stuff in, but we would significantly lower the amount of trade-in credit we would give. And a lot of times we would offload that on like a half.com or an Amazon.com.
Ah,
gotcha.
And use online sales to be the way we made that happen. I mean, you can imagine. Shit, I can tell you stories all day about the tricks that I would typically do to help get rid of our old games and get new games in. The game rushes in Blockbuster got to know me on a very good basis.
We don't have those up here, really.
No,
we don't.
no.
Well, we don't. Nobody's got Blockbusters anymore. That was a failed concept. I think
Yeah,
it went
that-
to-
There's still game rushes around though, which is weird.
Are
Really?
there? In Cincy?
Not,
They were all over in Cincy.
I think we saw one in Indiana the last time we were out there
Wow.
driving around. Like,
Well,
In the-
I mean, there's going to be a market for like DVD rentals, no matter what. My wife works library. That's kind of like them at an internet access is why people go to the library at all these days.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody that's talking about digital distribution only ain't going to happen. There's too many people that can't afford broadband or don't even have access to broadband.
Right.
It's just not. It's not going to be ubiquitous. It's going to be more and more popular, but it'll never be the format.
Yeah.
But
But yeah, taking a bunch of games into a game rush that in order to then turn them around to get their specific deal, and they loved it because they were getting trade-ins, made their corporate happy.
right,
And we would get new games or things that we could turn around and make a profit on.
nice.
Other than the fact that when I brought the receipts back in and had to do the margin analysis on them, it was kind of like doing calculus. But, those were tricks we had to do to
Yeah.
try and keep our inventory down while still being as friendly as we could with everything.
Right.
And darn it, I would try every single one of them in the book that I could possibly pull.
well, and that used to happen here. I mean, that's how I got my CDX. Was
Yeah.
I was an N64 mule for a day and took a whole bunch of N64 games from Video Games Express. Not one of Bert's ones, but one of the ones that was sold off.
Mhm.
And because EB was doing like a trade any 4 or any 3 or something in. And so I was grabbing all these N64 games and just driving all around town and trading them all in for all these brand new Pokemon Stadiums and bringing them back. And and at the end of the day, like I earned a
I think
CDX.
I did
out
that
of it.
deal back in
Man.
the day.
And you can't get away with that these days with the internet. I don't know why companies still try that shit. People are too savvy for that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Remember when Micro Center was taking game trade-ins and they gave you like an extra $25 in credit?
I haven't stepped
For
through Micro
any
Center
10
since
games?
2002.
When they first started, and your wife might, I don't know if your wife was working there at the time, when they first opened their gaming department, they would take any 10 games,
Mm-hmm.
any system, and if you traded them in, they would, along with your trading credit, they'd give you a coupon for $25 off any game in their store.
Yeah, they really wanted to. Center Stage was what they were trying to push. They really wanted that to be a really big deal. They wanted to be able to compete with the bigger gaming stores. But the problem was, from a buying perspective, this was politically correct, but I can put this. They weren't very efficient. The buyers weren't very efficient. So what would happen is a brand new game would come out. And it would be 2.5, maybe 3 weeks before it would show up in Center Stage. Well, by that time,
They're like,
a brand new
games-
game isn't a new game
Games
anymore.
like
Nobody
movies
cares
now,
about
like
it.
after 2 weeks, their new hot buying life is gone.
Exactly. But what would happen is the volume of games that would come in would be the volume for a day one.
Ugh.
And it would be, so far out that everybody would have had it. Nobody cared. So there'd be, just tons of, whatever
Wow.
2 weeks ago's, popular game was. And
You almost would have to have someone at the corporate office over in Hilliard whose single solitary job is to price those games.
yeah.
And have that list updated on a daily basis. And I don't know for a fact, but I'm sure Best Buys and GameStops and all those places have to have this. They also have the volume.
Mhm.
But they seems like they would have to have someone who just did that one thing to make sure that they weren't getting screwed by being even just 1 day behind.
Right, because those can kill you on a new release. I mean, because you don't have it, all of your competitors do. Someone's not going to wait day one for latest shooter, the latest whatever. They're going to go get it from whoever's got it, and if that's Best Buy, if that's GameStop, if that's anywhere, if it's Walmart, like no one's going to care.
Yeah.
So ultimately, it was Matt's lack of business
That-
instinct
That's what
that pretty much killed it. He had everything else in there, but he probably $2,000 in his vision and
I would say
didn't
so.
scrooge it up at all, basically.
Right.
And that's depressing to say, but it's reality, and that's you know, you got to have a bit of both to be successful.
Exactly.
We'll do our intro and play some clips from the running of the controllers before the episode, I guess. And,
Yeah, no, definitely.
This has been fun, and we'll do. I think with Hexadecathlon next month we'll do a podcast afterwards or something.
We'll have to talk more about running of the controllers then too, because we didn't talk about that.
Oh,
much.
let's talk about it now.
Hey,
How long
okay.
have we been talking? How long have we been talking?
Hour and 28 minutes.
Oh, good. So this will be at 20 minutes, and we'll be done.
Bring it on.
Good ending here. So how I discovered this, they were selling these DVDs at the store, running the controllers. It was $5, and it's like, I like always buying. If I go to an indie game store and I like it, I like giving them extra money on like a T-shirt, that sort of shit. They had this DVD, so I bought it. Low rent, cheap, shot on a camcorder, done on iMovie or something, but.
Yep.
It was fucking hilarious. So tell us what you did in it and what your parts or what you did in production about it.
The first year I played the role of Pac-Man, and literally it was me in a yellow shirt, just made to look like Pac-Man.
Okay, so it was like there was a video game. There's these controllers, like a N64, Dreamcast, NES.
Yes.
It was kind of like a wad of Christmas lights. You'd pick it up and there'd be all these controllers dangling from this big wad of strings of cords, and it passed off from one video game character to another, trying to get to the Game Junkie.
Yes.
for video game decathlon, and so you played Pac-Man.
I played Pac-Man.
And you're in the credits. I saw that when I looked at the thing.
Yes, I am in the credits.
And so you're running around this park, going after all these ghosts. And then you eat a power pellet, and then all of a sudden it cuts away, and then all the ghosts are blue, and they're running away from you.
Yes.
So that was
Eating the power pellet was interesting.
Was it on a slide, or where was it?
Huge-ass donut. Donut hole. So you imagine, I'm trying to eat this huge donut. No water, no milk, no nothing. Freaking cottonmouth after the thing.
I wish I could watch it again before this, because I want to remember these little details. So was there a hole in the face, or was there a hole in the face in the outfit you could see, or?
No, I was full. It was just the shirt, so you could see my face.
Oh, okay. So it wasn't like a big mascot outfit.
No,
okay.
no.
The ghost.
But I will show you pictures of a friend of mine who did that for Halloween one year, and it's awesome.
Oh wow.
But anyways, yeah. I mean, it was about as low budget as you could, made just for strictly for fun.
Why isn't those on YouTube? That's so YouTube friendly. I mean,
I think the first two.
Because I looked it up, it was just like a preview of 3. I didn't, but that was just looking up a game running of the controllers.
I had promised you guys I was going to get a hold of one of my old buddies from down there and see if he still had the video of number 3, because I don't even have the video of number 3. I'll get a hold of him and see if I can make that.
We'll post links if we get the stuff up for you.
And I'll just post the darn thing on YouTube at some point.
Yeah.
Good guys, Matt really going to be that ticked about it now.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Got a business?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Touche.
Too soon.
Not too soon. Perfect. Epic.
So you played Pac-Man, and then
Pac-Man the first year, and then Frogger the second year. So that one was the full costume. I was in the full frog outfit.
Nice.
Hopping around Fountain Square in
This
Cincinnati.
was kind of before the Mega 64 guys, too, or was it about the same time?
No, it was before. I think it was before.
I think it was just before, if not right when they began.
Yeah.
Pretty similar, so...
I mean, so it's that same guerrilla style, oh, look, it's video game characters in the middle of a real place, and being silly, and...
So yeah, I've got the footage of me hopping around, crossing streets around Fountain Square in the frog costume.
So you didn't get to play any of the Mario characters in Mario Poker Tour?
No, I wasn't there for that one. That one I had actually already moved to Columbus, so I actually came back to help them with the Madden portion of it, because I played Madden. I've got the Madden face.
Yeah, that's fine. You
Also-
don't go on a bus going, sup? What? On the bus! I'm going to play with Ocho Cinco!
The point of the game is to score a touchdown and get 7 points. Brett Favre. Oh. There's Frank Caliendo when you really need him.
Oh, God. Boom! He's on his back.
Boom! Tough acting, acting. But it was essentially that, and then I played Dig Dug in that one too.
I think my favorite though was like Mario was looking for new games to star in because they'd run out of ideas. So
yes.
So there's Mario Poker Tour, Mario Cornhole.
Mario Poker Tour was so good.
I love the Mario Cornhole.
Luigi was just, or not Luigi, but Wario was just like, I hate the Game Junkie, and with cigars and the whole 9 yards, playing this with these big fucking gloves on their hands, with trying to rake in all the money. And they could barely do it with these big white gloves on.
Oh my God! Adam playing Wario and Ben playing Waluigi was sensational.
Waluigi was the most useless character ever. I
know we had fun doing that particular one. That one was good.
Oh man, I want to do something like that. I'm not that. We're doing podcasting, so that makes sense.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, that's our contribution to this.
My wonderful wife Danielle too. The weekend after I had done the Frogger costume, the hopping, in huge clown shoes. In the outfit and everything, I apparently at some point had completely jacked up my leg.
Oh, no.
Twisted something, turned something in like my hamstring muscle. Thank God my mom-in-law was a massage therapist, fixed me.
Nice.
She, got the trigger points out and everything. So I could claim that I actually suffered injuries in the filming of Running of the Controllers. And thanks to the wonders of medicine, was better in a few days.
You were a trooper and fought through the pain for the sake of the film.
Except the pain came after and the film was done.
You know what?
Shit.
I think your performance is better than the Frogger cartoon on Saturday Supercade.
God, I hope so.
Hey, you remember Supercade. Good for...
Somebody
remembers it.
I have to strive for something in life.
Yeah.
That's a good place.
You ever see those? Like the old school, they had Soupy Sales play Donkey Kong, and
I think I was too young.
It was bad. I mean, somebody found the 35mm film at a flea market in California.
Oh no!
And ripped them to DVD or something. But I got to get a hold of them. They were. I mean, that's what I grew up with. That's what sparked my interest in all this shit. So thanks to those terrible cartoons, here we're sitting here. Well, we'll wrap this up. Thanks again. We'll do another cast about other subjects, and you'll be here for Hexadecathlon next month. And we'll make a trip down to Cincinnati at Arcade Legacy, and
I have not been. I cannot wait to go.
And beyond.
It's
in a lot of ways, it feels like a spiritual successor to Game Junkie.
That's exactly how I was going to say.
Absolutely. We're going to interview him one of these days here soon, and they got the arcade business that is the main driver, and the parties and stuff, and then the game stores supplement that, and I think he's doing it about as well as you could do it, and I hope the big move to Forest Fair will work out, but we'll talk to him about that.
Thanks again to Scott. That was fucking awesome. Before we go, I think we'll play another longer clip from Running of the Controllers. It's still funny today because it's still relevant today because Nintendo's still struggling. This is the bit of Mario's run out of game ideas, so let's mine the depths of what we can throw Mario into, and here's what they came up with. So we'll see you next month, and I'm Chris.
And I'm Tatton. Thanks again for listening.
See you next month.
Hello, Super Mario speaking. Oh, Mr. Miyamoto, how you doing? Oh no! Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess is gonna be delayed? Oh, you need some games? I think I can come up with some good games. Some really good, cheap, fast games that you can program in like 2 days. Alright, I'll call you back. I have just the right idea. Mario Cornhole! Why don't I get to play cornhole? Mario Footbag! Mario Poker Tour!
I hate the Game Junkie. Now, you're playing with podcast.